Okay, so I'm Garth Braithwaite. I put my Twitter handle up there. If you have any questions about anything I'm going to talk about, we're going to have some Q&A at the end, but you can also tweet me. I would put my email on there, but I would never answer an email, so don't email me. I'm a designer and a front-end developer lead at Adobe working on PhoneGap. A lot of the teams here in San Francisco, some of us are in Vancouver. I am actually in Idaho by myself. The Adobe office of one. So I have a bunch of kids, but this is our latest addition. This is Finn William, and he was born a week ago. So he woke me up at 3 this morning to make sure I got on the plane on time. And if I'm a little out of it, it's probably because I'm sleep deprived. All right, so what's PhoneGap? Has anyone in here made a PhoneGap application before or played with it? Wow, awesome, excellent. Okay, so some of this might be a review for you. But we're going to be talking about things that we've done lately in the last year to make some of this easier, and then some things that we're working on in the coming year. So just kind of an overview of what PhoneGap is. First, it's kind of best to discuss what problem it's solving. So we have this gap between native and web applications. Native applications, they're awesome. They have the best chance of being performant. I won't say they are performant, because just because it's native doesn't mean it's going to work well. You can make bad code on any platform. It also has improved user experience. Most people understand how native apps work now. They know how to download them, they know how to install them, pay for them, all that stuff they're comfortable with. But the downsides, they're very platform specific, right? If I write an iOS app, I'm not going to be able to port that over to Android very easily, and vice versa. And they also have very unique tool sets, not just the languages, but the workflow that I actually go through. Every time you want to get into another platform, you've got to learn their quirks completely. So those are some of the downsides. The web apps are awesome. If you're a web developer, then using web tools is very comfortable. So building, and when I say web apps here, I'm talking about single-page, thick client web applications. And they're multi-platform if you write them well. And now that we have responsive design, and that's a thing we do, if we do that well, not only is it multi-platform, but it'll actually go across multiple screen sizes as well, including desktop and all the way up to TV or large installations if you want to. Some of the downsides, though, they are inherently less performant because of the way that the code is run. Now, again, there can be ways that you can improve that, but by default, if you have good optimized code that's written in native versus web, you're going to have some hurdles to get over with the web applications. Also, they have limited system access. So there's certain hardware things that you just can't get access to through the web browser. So what PhoneGap does is it helps bridge this gap. It becomes a JavaScript API. So what you have is PhoneGap will actually help you bundle your web application as a native application that you can sell in the store. It'll actually build your APK or whatever else you're building to. And then it pretty much, in its most simple form, is just a embedded web view and then a JavaScript API that'll allow you to communicate between the web browser and the hardware device. So oftentimes this leads to the next question, which is, what is Cordova? Has anyone here built a Cordova application? All right. So Apache Cordova is a project, it's an open source project that's run by the Apache Cordova team, which is comprised mostly of Adobe PhoneGap team members. But also we have Microsoft members, Google, IBM. When you go to PhoneGap Day, I've never seen so many mobile companies come together. The only ones who I've never seen there is Apple, but everyone else. Amazon, when Nook was a thing, we'd have a lot of Nook people. BlackBerry as well. There's a lot of people who are contributing to Cordova. So Cordova is actually, it's the engine that runs PhoneGap. When PhoneGap was acquired by Adobe, they split it off so that they could keep some of the stuff proprietary, mostly licensing for things like the name and the logo. These are things that are important to Adobe. And they wanted to be able to have control of it. But also there's some proprietary stuff that they might put into PhoneGap that wouldn't need to be in Cordova, and I can show an example of that. But for the most part, they're the same. So if you build an application, we're committed as the PhoneGap team. If you build a Cordova application, you can use that Cordova application with the PhoneGap tool sets and vice versa. We want them to be working on the same level. So I'll say ish. Saves me from getting in trouble, I guess. There are some slight differences, but for the most part, most people would be able to use them just swapping them out. So what is it good for? The basic thing is you can build full applications with it. If you have existing mobile web apps, you can quickly turn that into a native app. If you're just more comfortable writing mobile web apps, you'd be able to quickly write a native application with it. Oftentimes what will work for a lot of companies and teams is they can quickly get something done with PhoneGap, and then they can see if they need to develop a native application for certain aspects of it. Anything that works well in the browser, in the web browser on mobile, will work well in PhoneGap. Even you can extend it beyond that. But it's also great for building prototypes, and I'll show a demo of that here in a little bit. But if you have something that you want to try out quickly on a mobile device, PhoneGap can be a quick way to do that. We saw some great stuff with experience design, how you can preview some stuff. That's just for doing design work, though. There's sometimes that you want to test out code and see how well that works. So we get this a lot. I heard PhoneGap is slow. And it really can be, but any coding platform can be. Any mobile web site can be slow. I've seen some terrible websites from large companies that run very poorly on mobile application or mobile browsers, and they're like, it's responsive, and you're like, yeah, but it's not doing it well. So there's some real big improvements that you can do. If you're good at, if you're skilled at optimizing for mobile web, you are skilled for optimizing PhoneGap applications. And also lately iOS, they had a significant performance improvement for third-party apps by releasing WK WebView, which should be on par with Safari as far as speeds go. It's not ever going to be completely on par because Apple will hold Safari to have all the advantages, I'm sure, in some way, shape, or form. But it's better. But getting started, so I was talking about building prototypes quickly. We're really working on PhoneGap itself for building applications and that JavaScript bridge and building plugins. It's very solid, and it works very well, and it's complete. So we've been focusing more on making the workflow a little bit faster, getting you up and running with an application a little quicker. And so we've built the PhoneGap Developer app. It's a mobile application you download from the app stores, and it'll allow you to preview an app without compiling the application fully. It is so much faster than having to compile and load it on your device. You don't even have to have a testing device. You can just have any person's device. They just go and download this app, and they can preview the application. There are some downsides to this, or some limitations. You can't load in all of the plugins, especially third-party plugins, but we have a bunch of default ones already installed in there. So you will have access to a lot of stuff. And to go along with that, we have a Commandline tool, but not everyone's comfortable using the Commandline tool, so we built actually a desktop tool as well, and it's really fast for creating a new application or loading an existing application and serving it up to be able to preview it on your developer app. And I've got demos of this that we'll show off as long as demos work. Cross our fingers. But the Commandline tool, it does a little bit more than what you can do with the desktop tool. You can actually create new projects. You can load in templates. You can run the project, and then you can also build the project that actually produce the package that you can upload to app stores. And yeah, there's some more cool stuff in there. You can load and install plugins. But this Commandline tool, you can install it via NPM. You install it globally. It's pretty simple to do. And it's actually very similar to the Cordova Commandline tool. There's maybe one or two commands that are slightly different, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same. Yes?
So the desktop app, is that available through the Apple's App Store?
You know, it's actually just download it from our website. We don't have it in the Apple App Store. It's built with Electron, so it's actually just an HTML app. We could put it in the App Store. I don't think we've seen any real reason to, but that's something that we can definitely look at doing in the future. But it's nice. It's definitely nice. I've taught workshops, beginner PhoneGap workshops. It's so nice to getting things up and going because people sometimes get scared of the Commandline tool. And you don't have to use the Commandline tool. I prefer it, but you don't have to. We also have PhoneGap Build, which is a cloud service. You connect your GitHub repo to PhoneGap Build, and when there's a new commit, it'll actually build test versions of your application. These are not the test preview I was talking about before. These are actual native applications, and people can download and test them on their device. It's a really nice service for continuous integration with mobile application development. It's a part of Creative Cloud. I don't know how about the access outside of that. I'm sure you can get it by itself, though, as well. On top of that, we also have plugins. So these are some of the default plugins, and you can figure out what most of them are just by looking at them. You have things like getting access to the battery status, the camera. You can check device motion. I like the vibrate one that's just off the screen there. But then on top of that, there's a bunch of third-party apps. So I loaded up the view here. And let's see if I can make it actually readable. So there's, whoa, too much. Okay, there's a child browser, there's calendar, getting access to the system's calendar. Keyboard, I'm not sure what that is. Facebook Connect. There's just a ton of stuff that people have written. There's things for credit card processing. There's a ton of plugins that are just available to you. Now, these plugins are not written by Adobe. Some of them are. If you actually come up to the very top of the list here, we actually have PhoneGap plugins. These ones are written by Adobe. So we can vouch for the quality of the code. But these ones, user beware or developer beware, I guess. But we're moving right now. You can see the little warning. We're moving right now to deprecating this in favor of just using NPM for installing these. So in the future, it'll just be NPM for installing all your PhoneGap plugins. But there's a ton of work that's already done for you. So if you wanted to get something done quickly that needed something specific and you found the plugin for it, it'd be able to get you up and running pretty quick. Again, the downside to these third-party plugins is you wouldn't be able to use something like the developer app to preview that functionality. It would be able to preview all of the UI, but once you get to that actual functionality, it would start to break down. All right, back to, I got too many screens going on here. Here we go. So, plugins. So that's where we are today. We have some stuff planned for the future. 2016, we're working on improving those tools. We're working on completely embedding the Commandline tool in the desktop tool. So anything that you could do in the Commandline tool, you'll be able to do in the desktop tool if you're more comfortable with the GUI. But they're pretty solid already. They just have some things. As I'm doing the design work on some stuff, and I'll be moving over to revamping some of the design work. I'm ready to redesign some of those things already. But for the most part, they're all functional. The next thing that we're working on right now, and this is actually just shipped in the last couple of weeks, is the browser platform. Right now, you can actually use a tool called Winery to debug your PhoneGap applications on your device. But it is a bit of a pain to use Winery. It's a bit of a pain to set it up sometimes. And so we just use the browser platform. All it is it's just serving it up to the browser. So you can debug things like CSS using your favorite debugging tools. And if you're using Safari, it's got the nice responsive layout that you can play around with. But we just added this last little bit. We are updating right now. PhoneGap.com has come in completely revamped. We're throwing out old documentation, and we're starting it up from scratch. We have a lot of good stuff in there already, but we're in the process of adding more. And then the last big thing that we were doing this year, we've already started it, but there's more work to be done. It's the embeddable web views. So what it is if you have a native application already, but you wanted access to a portion of Cordova or PhoneGap-like application or functionality within that application, you could use an embeddable web view. And it's not just like the built-in embedded web view, because it actually has that JavaScript bridge to access all the hardware, and you can also install all those plugins as well. So it doesn't have to be 100% a PhoneGap app from the beginning. It can be this blend of the two, which is really nice. A lot of people have been asking for that. Mostly things like if you wanted to do logins, enterprise logins, and you need a web view for that to do some specific stuff, you could use this sort of thing. Yeah?
So did I understand you correctly that the browser platform works better in Safari than, say, Chrome?
That was definitely the case before WK WebView. It has gotten better. I wouldn't be surprised. We don't know for sure because we don't have full access to Safari. But as far as performance, it looks like they're pretty much on par because they should be using, we've been told they should be using the same JavaScript rendering engine. This JavaScript engine and should be the same. But still, there are some functionality that is only available in Safari, that things like saved passwords and things like that you cannot access from third-party apps the same way. So, yeah. That answer the question? Yeah? All right. So this was the last big thing that we're working on. We're also working on building more sample applications for people. We have stayed out of the framework race and wars as much as possible. Obviously, PhoneGap or Cordova has been used to build Ionic, which has cited heavily with Angular. And it's a fantastic framework and it's a fantastic tool set. But we also have been playing around with React internally in our team as well. So we're not specific to any one framework or process. But we're going to be building more samples so you can play around with what it looks like to build these things correctly with these different frameworks. The one that we're working with right now is actually called Framework 7. It's a UI framework, and it's pretty nice. So we're rolling out that sample app. But really, and I can show that off actually. Let's go back to exiting this. So I have, here's the PhoneGap application, and this is my phone, and apparently I'm playing Clash Royale. All right, so right here, this is the PhoneGap desktop application, and I made a prototype just a second ago before coming up here called Hammer Test. Has anyone played with Hammer.js? Hammer's pretty awesome for doing touch events in JavaScript. So I can run this application, and right now it's serving at this IP address. And on my phone, that's just mirroring my phone there, I can connect to that. Hopefully it connects. There we go. Okay, so it's just a great box, but what it's doing is it's going to interpret all the gestures that I'm doing. So I'm doing a pan down, pan up, and you can do some really slick UI stuff with this that's very responsive. It gets past that 300 millisecond delay that's built into web applications. You can also do double tap, but I didn't have that set up yet. So that was just something I wanted to play around with, and I wanted to try it out on my device. I just loaded it up. And it's really simple to create a new application. If I create a new one here, I'll just put it in here and I'll just call it PhoneGap Test. Hello, I can type and see. And when I create it, it's already running. So if I stop this one and start it up again, there you go. So device is ready. That's the JavaScript functionality that's actually built into the device, the JavaScript bridge there to see if the device is ready, and then it changes the message. If I look at the actual code here, and let's see if I can get my editor over there. I just want to give you a quick look at what the project looks like. So this was the PhoneGap test, and I can't zoom in anymore. I can. No, I thought I could do Control Zoom. Anyway, you've got this nice file structure that lets you do things like platforms, which is empty right now, but you can actually add code that's specific to iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. So you can actually write one base code and then augment that for the different platforms, because different user experiences on these different platforms sometimes. But you've just got a www folder in here that's got the index.html, and then you've got all your rest of your stuff. It's pretty straightforward once you play around with it. And I've got here the sample application that's built in Framework 7. This is running in the browser with the browser platform, and it's got some nice animations and stuff that's built into this framework. So it makes it really easy to get up and running with something that looks polished and feels polished. All right, back here. So if there's anything specific that you are interested in adding to PhoneGap, it's open source, so feel free to add it. We accept contributions.